Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back for some more EVE Online. Today's video is not going to be about the EVE Online gameplay, although I am going to do some exploration in the background. I did my first round here and we're gonna see if anything new comes up, but I want to have a bit of a discussion because I read two interesting items pertaining to EVE Online, and I think that there's some interesting topics that I want to give you guys my thoughts on. The first item is an article that's basically an interview with CCP Hellmar. It was posted on r/EVE and r/games, if I'm not mistaken, and the title was about EVE Online's technology being at a breaking point. Now, this was actually a reference to the 6,000 player battles that the EVE Online community is able to organize these days, and it's basically just too much for EVE Online to handle. The other item that I read is, let's keep going, is the AMA from CCP Hellmar, and I thought that was actually very interesting, but I want to start with the number that I think was the most shocking when I read both of these. It's that there's around 10,000 new people that try EVE Online every week, but hardly any of those stick around. So there's lots of interest about EVE Online, and there's lots of people that try the game, but the retention rate is really bad. And so in the AMA, CCP Hellmar also said that basically you have two focuses at the moment when it comes to EVE Online. The first one is that they're trying to have a bit of a maintenance year so that they can implement and get rid of systems in order to better future-proof the game. And the second is, of course, the new player experience. We already see this in full swing with the changes to the war declarations. CCP wants to increase the retention rate of new players in the game, and that's only normal, and I think that's only good for the game as well, of course. But what I wanted to talk about was the reaction that I often see when it comes to how to make that happen. And lots of people say EVE Online is this massive sandbox, a PvP MMO that is super complex. In order to keep people in the game, you need to hold their hand a lot more, you need to give them more stuff, and you need to create more and better structures for them. And I personally am not entirely sure that that's always the answer. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on it. It's probably going to be decently controversial. I definitely want your opinions as well. I would love to read your comments and your thoughts on the ideas that I'm going to share here with you guys. But my first thoughts are, you don't always want more structure, because structure tends to actually be something that holds individual players back from doing what they actually want to do or trying what they want to try. And the first culprit, in my opinion, that is making the experience very bad for a lot of players that want to try a different area of EVE Online is local in nullsec and in lowsec is basically what's keeping me out of those spaces. It's that perfect intel. They know exactly who is there, they know when to start hunting for someone that doesn't belong in that space or that's new in that space. And outside of Providence, where they're trying to hold on to a not threat don't shoot philosophy, well, you get shot on sight, so it's not even worth trying unless you join a massive coalition to get something going in nullsec. There are exceptions. There's individuals that actually manage to hunt down miners and to disrupt certain coalitions, to be a real pain in the butt, but a new player I don't think is ever going to achieve that or to be able to even risk something in those spaces. And so I personally think it could be a very cool idea to turn 0-0 and lowsec local into wormhole space local. That is the area, the dangerous area of space, where I actually do dare to die from time to time, whether it's alone or with my brother. Just, you know, be willing to risk and lose the ship that you're flying, go out there and take that leap. Well, if I might stay under the radar and get away with something, that's actually a pretty big incentive for me to at least give it a try from time to time. Not necessarily commit to it fully, but at least give it a try. And lots of people, I think, that give it a try for the very first time in, let's say, lowsec, come back from a very bad experience because of that perfect intel from local. So yeah, what do you guys think the effect on the game would be if we would take out local from 0-0 and from lowsec? I think it could be very interesting. Talking about structures, of course, there are lots of structures that are helping big groups to organize, and I constantly see calls for more and more of those. For instance, alliance bookmarks. Well, I personally am actually against putting even more of those support structures in the game because it's already too easy. We already have two big coalitions that, and I don't mean two as in the number, but just too big as in they're too large right now, and giving them even more in-game tools to, for instance, tell 3,000 people in an alliance exactly where to warp in order to catch something at that point on a gate. I don't think it's actually healthy. It's just going to make things too easy for them as well at this point. Make that a bit difficult. Keep those corporation bookmarks. But of course you could go in the other extreme. How about we just take out alliances completely, put everything at corporate level, force them to have smaller packets of own space, for instance, trying to increase the chance, the potential for conflict, for change in 0-0. Well, I've been thinking about that a little bit, and I'm not sure if you guys will agree with me on that, but I think that basically that's not going to help. It's almost inevitable in a sandbox like this, where n+1 is often the answer to get something done, just get more numbers, that players are going to organize them. And if the tools don't exist in game, well, they're just gonna make them out of game. Coalitions don't exist in the game, but they definitely exist, and the entire infrastructure is just put out of game by the players, which, well, I'm not saying that that's good or bad, it's just an inevitability. On the other hand, you could think about, is it then a good idea to put more structure, easier ways to organize in the game? Is that going to help keep more new players in the game? Well, again, I am not entirely sure that that is the case. The analogy that I thought was pretty interesting that I saw in the interview article was that CCP Hellmar compared managing EVE Online to managing a city. And I absolutely agree that there's some very interesting points there. The main one was, of course, that unlike other games where you could make a sequel, keep the best stuff throughout stuff that didn't work, in EVE Online you can't do that. You need to focus on certain systems that you think are the most important to keep the game healthy at any time, but you can't just revolutionize everything in a single go. The analogy used was, for instance, well, if you have to first prioritize the sewers before you can start working on the roads and then maybe on some individual buildings and things like that, that's the way you have to manage a city, and unfortunately that's also the way CCP has to manage EVE Online. And I agree that that does mean that it's not easy to make changes in the game, and right now, of course, the focus for CCP is not on faction warfare, it's not on wormhole space, it's on rebalancing, trying to get the foundations going and trying to get that player retention to go up. That new player experience is very much the focus at the moment. But the knee-jerk reaction is often, let's put in more rails, let's put in more structure, and I don't know if more structure is always necessarily the answer. That's it. Those are my thoughts after reading those two items. I will link to the AMA in the description of the video, but I don't really like linking outside of the official game websites, because you never know when the wrong edit happens in a post on Reddit, for instance. So if you want to find the article on Reddit, just look for it in r/eve or r/games, and something like EVE Online technology at a breaking point. Very interesting reads. Absolutely, I highly recommend them. Some of the other things, quick thoughts that I got out of it is that, well, an EVE Online 2, I think it was Wingspan that got those kind of vibes. Well, I got the exact opposite. It's pretty obvious that that's not really an option for CCP. But yeah, those retention numbers, 10,000 people that try the game on a weekly basis, and almost none of them actually stick around. That is indeed something that CCP will have to work hard on. So let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you very much for watching. We are going to finish this though. We're gonna finish this 4 out of 10 and see if we can get any good loot out of it. This is me exploring, of course. That's also part of the game. Something that you can do, by the way, as new players. Definitely a goal that you can set yourself that allows you to become very self-sufficient in the game. And, you know, even without local, it's still an activity that I think I would enjoy. I think it would be super interesting. Maybe even take local out, be it an opt-in, even in high-sec, so that if you want to join someone else or do something in a more social setting, you gotta get yourself out there. You gotta risk it for the biscuit, just like in wormhole space. Sounds interesting. What would the game be like without a local? I think it could be super interesting. Let's see what that loot is all about. But for now, thank you very much for watching, guys. I think it's gonna take 20 seconds for the end screen to show it, so I'll see you all next time. Not great.